We dispense with the quorum call.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Like most of my colleagues, I spent the weekend monitoring the war in Ukraine. I took the opportunity to join the video conference with President Zelensky. I don't know how anyone could have hung up from that call confused about Vladimir Putin's intentions with Ukraine. And indeed, I think that we saw that Vladimir Putin has ill intent to anyone who opposes him. What is happening in Ukraine is not a special military operation, as Putin likes to say. It is an all-out war. Putin has caused a massive humanitarian and human rights crisis, and even though the world is collapsing around him, he has given no indication of pulling back. The sanctions imposed by the free world have had a devastating impact on Russia's economy. The ruble just crashed to a record low. The U.S. just instituted a ban on Russian flights over our airspace, and sports organizations, entertainers, private corporations are all avoiding Russia like the plague. If Putin's goal was to transform Russia into another hermit kingdom, he's well on his way to making that dream a reality. The very idea seems insane, but remember, Vladimir Putin may be a madman, but he's a madman who is very intentional in what he is doing. He's reading the terrain, and he sees that the world's foremost superpower is too busy worrying about optics to do the one thing that would send Russia's economy back to the Stone Age. Putin sent his army to invade Ukraine on February 24th. The Ukrainian people have endured 11 days of savagery, and we still have not imposed meaningful sanctions on the Russian energy sector. By now, the entire world knows that Putin is using energy as a weapon. Russia is now the U.S. third largest supplier of crude oil. The European Union gets about 40% of its gas imports and more than a quarter of its oil from Russia. We're feeling the pain every time we put gas in our cars. But looking at oil prices is still a bright spot in Putin's day. Russia is really a great big oil depot with an army. And he knows that much of the world is depending on Russian oil. He's financing his war with every single tank of U.S. gas at a time. Every time you pull up to fill up your tank, this is what is happening. And as long as Joe Biden refuses to tear us free from our entanglement with Russian energy, he is complicit with every single barrel of oil that he buys. Energy is the most powerful economic weapon that Putin has at his disposal. It is his currency. The only way to neutralize it is to cut off the revenue stream. We must sanction the Russian energy sector, and we must do it now. We must end the purchasing of Russian oil. It's important to our partners in Ukraine and to our own nation's security. Last year, Joe Biden made the unilateral decision to destroy energy independence in the United States when he canceled the Keystone Pipeline and banned new oil and gas leases on federal land. That is right, colleagues. January 2021, we were energy independent. We were a net exporter of energy. But Joe Biden changed all that. He decided that by executive order, not by a vote of the House or the Senate, but by executive order, he was going to end energy independence. And so, where has that put us? It has placed us right into the hands of a warmonger who is hell-bent on recreating the USSR. And his weapon, number one weapon, energy. He does indeed think he's got you over the barrel. Our energy sector needs certainty, not a series of actions based on the president's political whims. And we should give them that certainty by allowing us to move to energy independence. I implore the president to see reason and to end this dangerously foolish entanglement with Moscow and Russian oil. And on that note, I think it should be made clear to everybody that the answer is not to go to Venezuela and negotiate to buy Venezuelan oil from another madman. And the answer is not to have the Russians working as an intermediary on a new Iran nuclear deal, which, by the way, Madam President, the people of this country do not want to be entangled with Iran. And by the way, we hear they're negotiating to buy Iranian oil. This is about the dumbest damn thing I have ever heard of. It is amazing. You're going to go do business with Venezuela and with Iran and have the Russians involved in the middle of that? This is astounding. And this weekend, as I talked to Tennesseans, they could not believe that this administration would be stooping to such. Sanction Russian energy. Restart the Keystone Pipeline. Open up capped wells. Stop flaring gas, natural gas. Put it into the supply chain. Make certain that you are drilling domestically, exploring domestically. Do it before it is too late. Our mission as Americans has not changed. We have a duty to preserve and protect freedom. The sheer availability of live footage and photographs flowing out of Ukraine has highlighted the importance of that mission to protect and preserve security. This isn't the first time that Putin has invaded sovereign territory, but it is the first time that his crimes have been live streamed for the entire world to see. And as far as the free world is concerned, most of us have correctly identified the villain. But there are more than a few people out there who need persuading, and it's our job to help keep the information flowing. Early on in the war, Putin launched cyber attacks to destabilize Ukraine and prevent communications with the outside world. Through my work on the Armed Services Committee, I've supported funding for domestic programs that would help protect state and local governments here in the U.S. from these types of attacks. In the fiscal year 2022 NDAA, we created the Civilian Cybersecurity Reserve Program to make sure that our federal government can keep up with cyber threats like the ones from Moscow being launched at the Ukrainians. But when it comes to defending freedom, shoring up our own defenses is not enough. We have to look outward and prevent the kinds of vulnerabilities Putin is trying to create. Last week, I introduced the Internet Freedom and Operations Act with my colleague, Senator Menendez. This legislation builds off of the work we did together on the Open Technology Fund Authorization Act. It would authorize more than $100 million to support programs and circumvention technologies that keep the Internet up and running in conflict zones and under other repressive media environments. We've successfully used this technology to put control over information back in the hands of the people right where it belongs. Dictators like Putin suppress dissent for a reason. The truth is that free speech scares them to death. They don't want it. They want cancel culture. Only one point of view, and it is theirs. From where I'm sitting, it's clear that Putin is right to be fearful of the resistance in Ukraine and around the world, and especially in his own country, as his citizens are taking to the streets, thousands protesting, thousands being arrested, so that they can push forward with freedom in their countries. I would encourage my colleagues to support the freedom fighters in Ukraine and elsewhere. Support them by signing on to the INFO Act. And again, I thank Senator Menendez for his work on that. We've talked a lot lately about sanctions and stingers and ammunition, but I'd argue that what has rattled Putin the most is how powerless he is to stop people from speaking. As I mentioned earlier, his war crimes are being broadcast in real time to anybody that has a screen and an internet connection. Russian citizens are protesting in the streets against the Russian government. His struggling military is the subject of intense ridicule on every digital platform. It is a propagandist's worst nightmare and a source of immense hope for the Ukrainian people, and God bless them. They are in the fight. We have a duty to help keep that hope alive, and I would encourage my colleagues who haven't yet realized this to join together this week to stand up for the people in Ukraine, to stand up for energy independence in this country, and to stand up for free speech. I yield the floor.